It's shocking to hear that many people see death as an only option to escape the harsh reality of life. Even more shocking is hearing the statistics about suicide in the United States. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. For every 100,000 people in the United States, it is estimated that at least 13 will commit suicide. On average, there are 121 suicides per day, and at least 44,000 people will commit suicide each year. There are a variety of ways people end their lives. Some people shoot themselves, slit their wrists, hang themselves, or jump from a high altitude, which leads to the infamous Pasadena Street Bridge. Who would have thought the beautiful bridge along Colorado Street over the Arroyo Seco riverbed would receive the title of the Suicide Bridge? Originally built in 1912, the bridge wowed early travelers crossing the causeway. The bridge itself spans 1,467 feet across the Arroyo Seco. Before the bridge's inception, crossing the Arroyo Seco had proven to become a difficult task. So a designer by the name J.A.L. Wandel designed the bridge to make travels easier. He later named the bridge after his home state, Colorado. It was a masterpiece, proclaims engineer John Drake McCrow, who originally came up with the idea of the curved design of the bridge. However, the bridge's history quickly took a dark, more sinister turn. The first tragedy occurred while the bridge was still under construction. According to an article about the Suicide Bridge on legendsofamerica.com, supposedly, when one of the bridge workers toppled over the side and plunged headfirst into a vat of wet concrete, his coworker assumed he could not be saved in time, and left his body in the quick-drying cement. But the tragedy of the bridge did not end there. The first reported suicide would occur in the fall of 1919, and nearly 50 suicides would follow in the coming years. Another report, courtesy of the Pasadena Central Library, states that the amount of suicides between 1919 and 1937 had been 95, roughly 5 suicides per year between those 18 years. Speaking of 1937, in that year one of the bridge's most iconic stories takes place. On the 1st of May, in 1937, Myrtle Ward, 22, took her daughter Janet, 2, and jumped off the bridge. Miraculously, her infant collided with several branches of nearby trees, which slowed her descent, allowing her to survive, mostly unharmed. However, Myrtle was not so lucky. She plummeted to her death and was pronounced dead at the scene. The bridge underwent a $27 million renovation in 1993, during which it received a suicide barrier. This has reduced the number of suicides, although the bridge still retains its nickname. Even still, it did not deter many others from jumping off the bridge. Another unusual story that comes to mind is that of a suicide in 2008. In this unusual suicide, a man who had stabbed and killed both his son's mother and maternal grandmother went to the bridge soon after the murders and jumped. However, the suicides continued, even to this year. In July 16, 2016, an unnamed girl jumped off the bridge and left behind the message, "I jumped here, 666. In April of 2017, an unknown middle-aged man jumped off the bridge only to be discovered the following day. Most recently, in July 21st of 2017, suicide was suspected after a teenage girl plummeted to her death from the Colorado Street Bridge in Pasadena. Since then, the Pasadena city officials had ordered the fences be placed around the inside of the bridge to stop people from jumping. As of late, there had been no reported suicides, but people continue to wonder why so many people are drawn to commit suicide on the bridge. To get the most obvious out of the way, during the early years of the bridge, specifically between 1930 and 1937, California, like all the other states in the United States, were suffering from the effects of the Great Depression, that of which can attribute to most of the suicides around that era. Most people couldn't stand the horrors of poverty at the time, and resulted to suicide. Another reason that so many people may have committed suicide there could be that it was simply a hotspot to commit suicide at. It was relatively simple to access, and so many people have jumped off from there, so people with the intent to die would flock there like a moth to a flame. Then we go to theories of the supernatural having an impact on the bridge itself. Some believe that the bridge was cursed by a witch who was a former lover of the creator, while others believe that many spirits who dwell on the bridge have some kind of negative aura which leads people to want to commit suicide. On the topic of ghosts, the bridge is reportedly haunted. Some people claim to see Myrtle's ghost still searching for her baby. Others claim to see an old man with glasses just making his way across the bridge. Some even claim to see a woman in a long black coat walk swiftly on the bridge. Many people share their experience crossing the bridge, claiming they feel a heavy feeling quickly overtake their bodies. A couple of people even claim to be overcome by a feeling of dread. A woman, Donna, shares her experience. "When I was a kid, I used to see a woman in a long black coat walk swiftly on Colorado. I was with my mom, and we would drive blocks down and she would suddenly appear again. I could never figure out how she was able to appear again so far away. Does anyone else remember seeing her? I have never forgotten this experience. This started in late 40s as I remember and was too young to even ask about it." John, a resident of Pasadena, shares his experience. Drove by the bridge west yesterday afternoon because the freeway was closed. There was a man on the outside of the railing on the north side. Cops had just arrived to try and talk him out of it. An hour later, he was still there. I hope it turned out okay. Hope not to see the police crime scene tape below when I walked the arroyo today. Two completely different stories, but both equally terrifying. After hearing so much about the bridge, my friend, his cousin, and I decided to take a trip there. We took the metro to Pasadena, and from there we took an Uber to the bridge itself. Our Uber driver was confused at first, asking if we were just going to walk on the bridge. We responded with yes. And it seemed as if he knew the stories behind the bridge, and seemed concerned about potentially driving 3 teenage boys to a suicide spot. We assured that we were just going to look at the bridge, and we were dropped off. Without exaggerating, the moment you step on the bridge, it definitely feels off. Something about knowing about all the stories gave the bridge an eerie feeling, one that I quickly took note of. As we walked on the bridge, we found written on the sides names of people who jumped, or the phrase, "I jumped from here." We even found the writing that read, "I jumped from here, 666. Another thing I took note of was the amount of broken beer bottles scattered throughout the bridge. Upon taking note of this, my friend came up with the assumption that there may be so many bottles because people needed something to calm the nerves before they jumped. We continued exploring for about 20 minutes and decided to head home. The mysteries of the suicide bridge are largely unanswered, and may remain that way. It's definitely sad to know that so many people lose the will to live and jump to their deaths, and so few are rarely talked out of it. To my understanding, most people that want to commit suicide really just need someone to talk to. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, feel free to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. To close, I'll leave you with this little factoid. The top 5 ways of committing suicide, from least common to most common, are suicide by gunshot, overdose, hanging, poisoning, and carbon monoxide inhalation.